Hi there. This is Friday, July 23rd. John McAfee's Dead Man Switch was supposed to start today, and people have been sitting on the YouTube channel waiting for it to start with information, and it hasn't. He had a lot of his stuff was on Ethereum, and he said it'll come out unless the internet goes down. That's the only thing that would take it down, and apparently they've been trying to do that. So interesting to see what the games are between good and evil going on right now. I just read just now that the Democrats are trying to come after Kavanaugh again. Are they trying to open because Pete Stevens, the liberal that I think Reagan put in, I don't think he realized how liberal he was. Anyhow, the Justice Stevens is saying he will not retire right now. So they're trying to get a Democrat person to put in somebody. So they're trying to come after Kavanaugh again, and they've gone to the FBI to ask what kind of investigation background was done on Kavanaugh's background, and what's the dirty scoop, and how many reports were sent to the White House, what wasn't sent, is there any dirt they can still dig up, I guess is what they're looking for. And so that all started today as far as I know. Just, the Democrats are just grabbing at straws, right? God's in charge. God is in charge, and God is going to win. Like I read the other day from Psalm 37, we're to fret not because of evildoers, because God knows what their end will be. All right, I got to read something too that I found on Telegram, and I'll do it right here at the beginning because it was. I don't know if you guys have seen it before or not. Um, just give me a sec to scroll down and see if I can find it. It was on the Tribunals for Justice is the account, and then there were several other accounts that shared it as well. And so here we go. So it says the snakes are coming out. The masks begin to fall off. The Chinese biological lab in Wuhan is owned by GlaxoSmithKline. I think that's a British company, isn't it? British pharmaceutical company. Which, and then they put in parentheses accidentally every phrase. So GlaxoSmithKline owns Pfizer, the one who makes the vaccine against the virus, which accidentally started at the Wuhan Biological Lab, which was accidentally funded by Fauci, who accidentally promotes the vaccine. GlaxoSmithKline is accidentally managed by the finance division of BlackRock, which accidentally manages the finances of the Open Foundation company, Soros Foundation, which accidentally manages the French AXA. I'm not sure what AXA is. Soros happens to own the German company Winterthur, which happened to build a Chinese lab at Wuhan, bought by the German Alliance, Allianz, which coincidentally has Vanguard as a shareholder, who coincidentally is a shareholder of BlackRock, which coincidentally controls central banks and manages about a third of global investment capital. BlackRock is also coincidentally a major shareholder of Microsoft, owned by Bill Gates, who coincidentally is a shareholder of Pfizer, which, remember, sells a miracle treatment. I'll just say that instead of the word they use. Coincidentally is now the first sponsor of the World Health Organization. Now you understand how a dead bat sold in a wet market in China has infected the whole planet. And that was actually a statement made by Nicholas Vanaman. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but that was something he came out with. I missed a call from our pilot, Greg, because I left the phone in here while I was in the back getting ready to get online. Anyhow, the convoluted incestuous relationships among the elite is pretty, and it may be biological as well as financial. It's pretty shocking. There is an asteroid headed to Earth at some point this year. Apparently, it was supposed to hit. I was listening to Israeli News Live just half an hour ago. He said it was actually supposed to hit Cuba. It was headed towards Cuba. They do an awful lot to try and deflect the trajectory of these asteroids and to chip away at them to make them smaller so the impact is less severe. Right now, it's supposed to be hitting the tectonic plate up near Cascadia. So who knows when it's going to hit? Who knows if it's going to hit? Who knows what they can continue to do to shrink it and deflect it? But you know what? I'm sharing it because this is a reason to be in prayer, especially if you have friends, as we have listeners in Northwest or the West Coast, because if something hits, it's going to cause a lot of trouble to anyone and everyone living around the Pacific Rim, not just the earthquake issues. Also, speaking of water issues in the Pacific, there's a typhoon that's about to hit China with all the trouble they have had with the flooding. Oh my goodness, the flooding and the collapsing of dams. Just an indication of the quality, not of their cement. Anyhow, there's the Olympics opened this morning on our time. It would have been evening their time. But there is a typhoon that is heading towards Japan as well. So be praying for our athletes. Be praying for all the athletes that the Lord will keep them healthy. Tokyo threatened, or Japan threatened, to shut down the Olympics at the very last minute if necessary. They don't want things spreading. So, I saw a video just now of about an hour ago, of the Parliament of Brazil. Now I have, my ex-husband is related to missionaries who are working on the Amazon in Brazil, and they both got COVID and were hospitalized and quite ill. They're now here in the States. He's getting some medical issues addressed, but they were very sick, and they told me, because they had kids that were working as aides in a hospital, that they were just maxed out. So the parliament members from Brazil's parliament, I saw a video of them going to visit a hospital that supposedly had 500 patients and several deaths, and they got inside and it was empty. Now, I happen to know from my former sister-in-law that there are issues with, health issues, and there are big problems. But I suppose it goes in cycles, and they happened to go when nothing was happening. But, we do not need another round of the lies that we had to deal with a year and a half ago. Not at all. So just, like I told you yesterday or the day before, when I'm going through some of these news items, I'm picking out things that I think we need to put on a prayer sheet and be in prayer for. When I start going through Telegram to get to see what some of the news is that people are talking about, I see a lot of the news items posted on Telegram before I start hearing other alt media discussing it. So far, it's been a pretty good resource. So representatives in the House are considering an impeachment effort against David Chipman, who is Biden's nominee for the ATF, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Department. He hasn't even been voted on yet, but they're already talking impeachment because of how he lobbies for gun control and is anti-Second Amendment. So thank God for this effort by the Republicans to do what's right according to our Constitution. I think it's really, really important that we know who our candidates are who are running, that we get to know them. Even somebody like Lynn Wood is disagreeing with Trump over some of the candidates that Trump is supporting for South Carolina. So, it's one thing if you have a rhino, but there's a group in Atlanta that is promoting Republican candidates, but the ones that they're promoting are actually Democrats in their liberal stance, trying to take over the Republican Party and wipe it out. So know your candidate, that you're going to know who's on the ballot ahead of time. Start listening for who's running for office. Do your best to vet them yourself and get behind them. Make phone calls for them. I used to go to 2016. I went to the local Republican campaign headquarters and I sat there and made phone calls for the people that I supported. I helped them with that. It wasn't hard to do. I'd go in for an hour or two in the evening and, a lot of the times we'd just get an answering machine, wouldn't talk to anybody, a lot of hang-ups, but we would leave messages and you just read the script. It's very easy to do. Have to say, I'm so proud of some of the things I hear coming out of Hungary. They have a law right now that it bans the promotion of, how do I say this word without getting banned here? Same-sex relationships, let's say it that way, and sex reassignment. And the European Union is thinking of stripping away their voting rights in the European Union. And yet their president, I believe, is a Christian, and they have really tried to do some honorable things, working alongside Trump and just, they've been through communism. They know what that control is like. So they're really promoting things that will bring God's blessing on them. And I think that's incredible. They put in a law backing their constitution in December of 2020 that defined marriage as the mother had to be a woman and the father had to be a man to be considered a marriage. So this definition of marriage that we tried to promote, how many years ago? 10 years ago here in this country, that by the time we realized the need to define such, it was already too late and overturned. Lynn Wood's pretty incredible, the things he's trying to do. I appreciate him very much. The Attorney General in Mississippi has asked the Supreme Court to defend the right of the people, in other words, the right of the states, to pass laws that protect life and women's health. And this Attorney General in Mississippi is also urging the court to overturn Roe versus Wade. The Mississippi law is not as strong as Arkansas's law, but it has now gone already. It's gone through the court system ahead of Arkansas's, and so they are trying to overturn Roe versus Wade with their law. Arkansas had passed this year the strongest pro-life legislation in the country, and a judge just this week overturned it, saying it, claiming it was unconstitutional. And of course, it'll be appealed higher up with the goal. The whole point was to end up in the Supreme Court. And that was that was openly stated that they want to use this bill to overturn Roe versus Wade. I mean, when Roe versus Wade came through, there were no sonograms showing life in the womb. And so they were able to trick people into saying it's just a blob of tissue. So, if you go to defendingtherepublic.org/COVID/ defendingtherepublic.org, that is Sidney Powell's website. She has some forms on there that you can download. And I meant to put this in the, I forgot to look at my list this morning to see what I'd written down last night. So I missed this one to put it in the drop down description box. But defendingtherepublic.org/COVID/ she has forms there that you can print out that will help you with a religious exemption or other kinds of circumstances that you can use to postpone, if not outrightly refuse to be injected with something that you have no intimate knowledge of what's really in this thing. Because they are hiding the truth. They are not letting people know that the shots are full of graphene, which is a deadly poison. It's also magnetic once it gets into your body temperature. I have read studies about where they're going to use 5G when they turn that on this fall in September. They're going to be able to manipulate stuff going on in your brain, with the frequencies of 5G. It's really awful. But so defendingtherepublic.org, look for the forms there to support the fact that the Nuremberg Code says it is illegal worldwide. It is illegal to force somebody to take an experimental medical treatment. You can sign up and volunteer to be a guinea pig, but you cannot be forced into it. Mandatory is against the Nuremberg Code. Georgia, the last news item is Georgia. Where are we time-wise? Georgia mailed out 7 million ballots in 2020, but they only have 5.6 million registered voters. So where's the other 1.4 million ballots? Were they returned? Were they counted? The amount of fraud that went on in Georgia, and then Stacey Abrams was paid a whole bunch of money to kind of lead the charge with that election down there, and it's just, yeah, she did not win the governorship, and so she was really working hard successfully. So one last thing. I was thinking after a call last night that we need to be more, I need to be more, I'll say this for me, okay? I'm going to put it in personal I terms, but I hope that you will take it to heart yourself. Be intentional. Think and pray about what's going on. Ask questions such as, how can I encourage or challenge someone today? And I was on a call last night talking about lack of opportunities to, for example, share the gospel or speak to somebody. If you tend to be like me and you're alone more than you're out and about, we don't get very many opportunities to talk to people. But we can talk to people on the funny. I'm reading the chat on the phone. If you go to the store, you've got at least a clerk to talk to if you can't talk to somebody you're passing on an aisle. So one of the things we discussed on the phone last night, I suggested that there are times when I remember and think about praying for the people that I'm going to meet and asking the Lord to put in my path somebody that I can say a word of encouragement or something to. Diva's motto is do a random act of kindness every day and you may change someone's life. Absolutely. So today's the 23rd, so we're in Proverbs 23. And I titled this The Wisdom of Restraint. When you sit to dinner with a ruler, now not many of us get that kind of an opportunity, but if you do, note well what is before you. Put a knife to your throat if you're given to gluttony. That's a pretty strong picture there. So don't be greedy. When you're out eating with people, especially with uppity ups, you certainly don't want what you ingest to be tainted with any kind of a drug that might lead to your being compromised. Don't crave his delicacies, for that food is deceptive. You don't want to owe either. Just because somebody does something nice to you, to feel that you owe something back. God bless you, Gloria. Your mom's back in rehab. Oh, hon, I'm so sorry. God bless you as you visit her. They should be encouraged by your visit. Don't wear yourself out to get rich. Have the wisdom to show restraint. So the issue isn't money. I've said this before. The issue is not money. The issue is not having lots of money. The issue is loving it and hoarding it. What God gives us, he means for us to share. Cast just a glance at riches, and you'll find they're gone, for they will surely sprout wings and fly off to the sky like an eagle. Or you end up with a hole in your pocket is another way of looking at it. Don't eat the food of a stingy man or crave his delicacies, for he's the kind of man always thinking about what it costs him. He may say eat and drink to you, but his heart is not with you, and you'll end up vomiting up the very little you've eaten and have wasted your compliments on him. So be intentional and know who you're with. Don't speak to a fool. Here, this is wise words. Don't speak to a fool, for he will scorn the wisdom of your words. Larry used to tell us this all the time, that when we need to be sharing what we learned from him. We need to be sharing what we understand about what's going on, because people who are watching and getting all their news for their decisions just from mainstream media are being lied to. And so we need to try and open eyes. But as Larry said, and as it says here from King Solomon, don't speak to a fool, because he will scorn your wisdom. So if people think that you're just a conspiracist or telling conspiracy stories, move on. Don't try to convince them. The fools need to be woken up. That is true. But if they're not willing to listen, they're not willing to wake up. And there comes, you say something, and that's where you say just a little bit. Christ said on the Sermon on the Mount, you are the salt of the earth. So salt people, make them thirsty. When you put a salt lick out for horses or deer, you put a salt lick out there, they will be thirsty, and then they will need to drink water. You can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink, but the way to trick them is to make them thirsty. And so you present a little idea, you ask them questions, find out what they know, and then ask, have they considered, and then you put out one short thought based on what they have told you they know and believe. Have you considered? Then you're not preaching at them, you're very humbly coming at them with a proposition for their consideration. Don't move an ancient boundary stone or encroach on the fields of the fatherless. Have you been around people who you set a boundary, you set a line, don't cross this, and if you do this, then I'm going to do this. There are consequences. And instead, they don't cross the line, so you can't do the consequence on them, but they push the line. They move the boundary. And so you can't, absolutely big, don't cast your pearls before swine. Jesus said that too. But they move the boundary, just tweaking it enough that they're tempting you to see what you're going to do. Kids do this, but I've seen adults do it too. So don't move a boundary. For their defender, especially with the fatherless, for their defender is strong. He will take up their case against you. So don't take advantage of orphans and children and the fatherless. Apply your heart to, or widows, or single, single women, especially the older ones. Apply men too. There are times when men need help as well. Apply your heart to instruction. This is one of the things I had here. We need to be intentional. Be intentional. Apply your heart to instruction and your ears to words of knowledge. Proverbs is so full of talking about the need for wisdom and understanding and knowledge. Don't withhold discipline from a child. Like we read yesterday, train up a child in the way he should go. But that really means train up a child, again, according to his bent, again, according to the gifts God has put him and characteristics God has put into him. If you know your child, you know how to work with him. So I think I've told the story before. We had 3 little kids that came into our child care. The mother was the first chair in the orchestra. She was a pediatrician. And so on Easter Sunday morning, we had the kids coming in before 7 o'clock. And they were there while their mother played 3 services. We would watch them during rehearsal. At some point during the morning services, there were 3 services. At some point, they go enjoy Sunday school and then come back. So they weren't in the Sunday school classroom for 3 services. The Sunday school didn't let them stay there that long. The middle child could be absolutely incorrigible. He was one of these stubborn, do it himself, only if and when he wanted to kind of kids. The oldest one and the youngest one were sweet as can be and compliant, cooperative, but not this little character. He was a handful. But I got the goods on him. I figured out that if I asked him to come help me with something and we were going to do it together, he liked the attention, he'd come help, and he would be cooperative. But if I told him to clean up your mess, no way, no how, he was not going to do it, and you weren't going to make him. But if you made a game of it, then he wanted to participate in that game. He didn't want to be left out of that. So, this is the training a child according to his bent. You've got to figure out what a child's personality is so that you can work with it so that they are malleable, especially these ones that you can't bend. You don't want to... There's such a thing as breaking a child's will, just like you do when you break a horse. But you have to be careful in how you do it, that you don't break their will you don't break their spirit while you're breaking their will to make it malleable. If you break their spirit, you've destroyed the child, and that's not going to be good. And a lot of parents just don't know how to do that. And when you've got one of these kids that are so difficult, it really is important to find someone who can help you along with that process. So if remember that with a child, if you punish him with the rod, he won't die. Well, you do discipline first, where you're training the child. And only if the child becomes so incorrigible do you apply punishment. That is where you've warned first. You don't just bring out the rod. The rod, spare the rod, spoil the child. There's a place for that. And yet in Europe, it's illegal to use corporal punishment because they've seen too much abuse. And so they've outlawed it completely for everybody, which in my opinion, for some kids is not right. It says, punish him with the rod and save his soul from death. So there's an appropriate place for the rod of correction, which is Proverbs 26:3, a rod for the backs of fools, a whip for a horse, halter for the donkey, and a rod for the back of fools. So my son, if your heart is wise, then my heart will be glad. My inmost being will rejoice when your lips speak what is right. Don't let your heart envy sinners. This is again Psalm 37. Fret not because of evildoers. So don't let your heart envy sinners, but always be zealous, not jealous, but zealous for the fear of the Lord. There is surely, sorry, I got to go get glasses. I mean, not these readers, but real ones. There's surely a future hope for you. If you are zealous for the fear of the Lord, there is surely a future hope for you, and your hope will not be cut off. I think of Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans that I have for you, says the Lord, plans to give you hope and a future, not to harm you, but to give you hope and a future. So there's a future hope for you. Listen, my son, and be wise. Keep your heart on the right path. Keep your heart on the right path, because your thinking will follow if your heart's in the right place. Don't join those. Now, we've got a whole passage on some very basic behavioral issues. Don't join those who drink too much wine or gorge themselves on meat. In other words, are gluttons. For drunkards and gluttons become poor, and drowsiness clothes them in rags. Listen to your father who gave you life. Don't despise your mother when she's old. Buy the truth and don't sell it. That just made me think about the importance of a good education, because that's something that can't be taken away from you. An investment in your education is going to be something you take with you for the rest of your life. Whether that is going on missions trips, whether that is just seeing cultures from a different perspective, even different cultures within our own country. It's amazing to me some of the places in America that are so different from others. Yeah, that's the European way, Lee. Let's see. Buy the truth, don't sell it. Get wisdom, discipline, and understanding. And there was a chapter, I think it's chapter 4 or chapter 8, where it talks about the importance of getting wisdom and searching for it like you're searching for treasure. Invest in it. The father of a righteous man has great joy, and he who is a wise son will delight in him. May your father and mother be glad. Why will they be glad? Because of your becoming an asset, a godly person. May she who gave you birth rejoice. My son, give me your heart and let your eyes keep to my ways that I'm telling you about. And here's another one of these practical situations in life. A prostitute is a deep pit, and a wayward wife is a narrow well. Like a bandit, she lies in wait and multiplies the unfaithful among men. I skipped over chapter 5 because it happened on a weekend, and that's the one where it talks about the fool going in, seeing the prostitute loud and brash on the street, and goes in and doesn't realize that an arrow will pierce his heart and he will be destroyed. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaints? Who has needless bruises and bloodshot eyes? Those who linger over wine, who go to sample bowls of mixed wine. Don't gaze at wine when it's red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake and poisons like a viper. Your eyes will... This is talking about the drug. This is such vivid language here. Your eyes will see strange sights. Your mind will imagine confusing things. You'll be like one sleeping on the high sea, tossing and turning, lying on top of the rigging. They hit me, you will say, but I'm not hurt. They beat me, but I don't feel it. I was in a car accident, but I walked away because I was too drunk to be tight. When will I wake up so I can go find another drink? So, interesting story at the end of chapter 23. So we're skipping 24 and 25 over the weekend. I'm not going to go back and read the couple that I missed at the beginning of the month. They were 2 chapters mostly dealing with the prostitutes. But the other chapters that we've skipped over on the weekends, there will be 5 of those chapters. And so we will finish up Proverbs next week. Yeah, next week. And then the following week, which will be the first week in August, we will pick up on those chapters that we missed. There'll be 5 of them. So the first week in August, we will catch up on the weekend chapters that we skipped over. And I had an idea for August. I think I saw it once and then I didn't see it again. There's a new Navigator study on the names of God that I thought might be really fun, rather than going into. I have a book on prayers in the New Testament, so I've got a couple choices that I'm thinking about, but those are a couple of things. Certainly, Diva, when we're talking a lot about the discipline of kids in this chapter, not in anger, be calm and speak. God gave a cushioned muscular area that you sit on that is appropriate for a spanking. It's an appropriate place, rather than taking something and swinging. If you use your hand should be something for love, not something for punishment. Being careful that what you use is flat, or the switch or something is supple. Anyhow, it's a tough thing. But kids who don't, and not every child needs something physical done to them. Some are very sensitive, and just the look is enough to arrest where they're going. Others are quite stubborn, and they need a little more. And yet it's very important to make sure that what you're doing isn't because the child is different from you and you're trying to squish them into the mold of who you are, because that's not fair. God didn't make that child to be you. God that made that child with a personality that is unique and different from you, and that needs to be fed. Now, I'm very thankful that I got to sit in on some graduate classes that my ex-husband was taking in child development. And one of the lessons that meant the most to me was describing different kinds of parenting styles. And the neglectful parent is atrocious for a child. A child cannot be left to its own resources, his or her own resources, and ignored by the parent, because then you're getting an angry child who has not experienced love. But by the same token, the second worst is the one that is the parent who is super controlling and determined that you have to be who they say you have to be, because you need to know who the child is. The best parent is the one that gives freedom appropriate to the child's intellectual level, who encourages responsibility. You work along with the child to teach them and then give them the chance to do things on their own. So that's called authoritative rather than authoritarian. It is not good to be your child's best friend. It is good. You can be friends once the child is an adult, but you're a parent for a reason. You need to act like a parent, not just a friend. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. I got a frog in my throat. That's it for today. I'll be back on Monday, as long as we got internet next week. I suspect we will. So I'll just keep saying that, because I keep hearing questions with the number of people who are being shut down because of cyber attacks and so on. Lee, God bless you. And yeah, we have to remember every child is different. I'll tell you, I had a bundle. I had a bunch of them. Every one of them was different. And you You have to be very flexible to work with them. And that is hard if you also have to earn a living and come home tired and don't spend a lot of time with the children because you don't have a lot of time. And Kat Kerr was talking about growing up. She was the third of 12 or the third of 16? So she learned very early to help parent the younger ones. But obviously her parents had done a good enough job with her that she could, step up to that responsibility. Some kids are willing to take on responsibility, others aren't, and you've got to be able to work with them in a way that will help to train. That's what discipline is. Discipline is not punishment, discipline is training, creating disciples. And yes, I know we all want our kids to be like us, but that's unrealistic. And so when my son went off to college and came home, he was changing. He was growing away from me and becoming his own person, which I encouraged. But he wanted me to change and be like him then. And so I sat him down and I said, I appreciate how you are changing. It's okay. But you don't need to expect me to change and be like you. Let me be who I am, even if I'm different. And you can be who you are. So it's quite an age range there, Lee. God bless you with those. I will say, the effort I put into, because I knew the difference from that class I had taken. I knew the difference between neglect and authoritarian, where you're just dictator. And learning to work with each child's differences in personality. Sometimes the kids conflicted, and I had to say, it's okay, they're different. You do things this way, they do things that way. It's okay to be different. We love one another. We accept the differences and we work with it. And to learn to pay attention to the personality of the child. Did they learn visually or do they need to hear it? I had one who had to speak it. She did a lot of Socratic method, question and answer, in order to learn. And so I would write a question on one side of a note card and an answer on the other and make everything one sentence concise. And so she was very kinetic. And so, which is why she's such an incredible artist. So she would walk around the backyard, whatever the weather was. She'd walk around the backyard with her cards and she'd flip the cards and question and answer and just keep walking. And with her kinetics, she needed to move while she was doing that. And if you've got a child that needs a lot of movement, Lee, get a ball for them to sit on. Don't expect them to sit on a chair, and see if you can get the teacher to let them sit on a ball at their desk. Because that gives them proprioceptive, I think is the word. It a lot has to do with how the brain is organized, and kids are different. Some are extremely concrete. They want everything in black and white. There are other kids that paint with vibrant colors, and the more change they have, the happier they are. Yeah. So it's a challenge, but I will say, by doing that the way I did it, my kids' teen years, I had very little trouble with them. I enjoyed their teen years in ways I didn't think was possible. And yeah. So, hyperactivity. I know a man, that guy was hyperactive. He had a little bit of speech issues. He was hard to be around, but I'll tell you, he was on the security team that went ahead of GW when he was campaigning. And because he was hyperactive, he could keep his eye on multiple directions and know what was going on because he was so scattered. And he was perfect for that kind of job. Oh, that's awesome, Diva, for sharing that about being a developmental specialist. Lee, if you get in touch with me, I can put you in touch with Diva. But I'll just put an email is Mary Ellen, and then the numeral 4, Larry at Yahoo, and that comes up on my phone. So I see it right away. So with that, I'll say goodbye. Be blessed this weekend. I'm going to have the chance to meet somebody who's headed to the mission field tomorrow. Well, I'm going to meet tomorrow somebody who's headed to the mission field. I really appreciate my real estate agent is going to. She wants me to see the house to buy it. I already know the answer on that is no. There's no garage. It's on the wrong side of town. But I'm thrilled about being able to go and actually meet some people. So I'm looking forward to it. So thanks, folks. God bless you. Bye for now.